All right. Oh, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. All right, I will walk through GU to begin with. Basically, coming into yesterday, we wanted to buy out of this area. Probably the worst price action we've seen, I would say, in like 6 months down here. So we just could not get an entry. It's just one of those things. Um, Now we have pushed to the upside, and we still haven't broken this 15-minute structure. So we've come into this demand to supply point that's flipped here, and was actually a really good place to sell. It was myself and Dill were actually looking to sell out of this. It nearly gave us an entry. So it actually came in, did that minor inducement, and then just didn't come back up. So AU ended up being the better pair to sell here. I'm sure Dill will walk through that when he looks at AU. But just obviously, you wouldn't have got tapped in, cover the 2 minute point you're not in. So unfortunately, one of those things where our entries get to play out in Asian session again. But coming out of that point, we're in that 50-50 range again. I would like to see price push up, especially out of the point where you come in and come and take some of this liquidity to the upside. Only problem being is we haven't got a lot to work off of here. Now we have got an hourly point that's down the bottom here. Only thing I don't like about it is there's not a lot of imbalance after that point. It's kind of all pretty filled on these lower time frames. So I wouldn't be surprised if GE doing what it's doing now, maybe racks out of this really, really weak supply to demand here, very, very weak, and possibly just trickles its way up. I also don't mind looking for, we've had a 15-minute break here, looking in this area in here for a sell. So they're basically the two options we've got today. Nothing's screaming out at me at the moment like we're going to be able to get a trade the first, 5 minutes of London just because of where we're positioned. I would say AU's the better pair out of the three, and obviously, like I said, Dylan will walk through that. But we're in a bit of an interesting spot. What I would have been looking for coming into this session is possibly this continuation that it gave us. It racked off a 2 minute point, just happened too early. Now we can't look at it obviously because it's already played out. And you may find price just trickles down from there. So it could actually be giving itself an inducement into this point here. Maybe possibly break this high and give us a really good inducement up like this, and we could get an inducement into a very, very dodgy mitigation to push up. If not, like I said, we will look to sell out of the top of this area here. So maybe a bit of a waiting game. It looks like towards the end of this week could be the trades. This week's actually pretty bad for news and things. With a bank holiday, I'm pretty sure tomorrow. Next week's a lot better. So
Mm.
this week may be one of those weeks where we just get to watch price skip around in a circle for a bit, and wait for prime positions last week, especially with the movement we had last week, 150 pips up, 210 pips down. I wouldn't be surprised if we worked in this range for a little bit. Just be patient. There were these two continuation trades here that were called last week. So just take your time. There will be some more trades that set up when it needs to. So yes, could be a bit of a patient waiting game. Further up in the IFC, I was cautious because of Asia highs, but it's okay given. Yes, yeah, exactly right. So what you've got to understand is timing only gets us so far. So, yes, we don't want to take a trade in Asian session ideally, especially with GU, Australian, and then the pound. The last thing you want to do is take a trade during Asian session because none of those sessions are actually doing their thing. But price is going to be where it's going to be, at where it wants to be. So the significance of this point, it's worth looking during the session. Like we had two Asian session trades a couple of weeks ago, which were A plus
Mm.
entries and gave an entry. So you should just still be looking, like we say, have alerts there and then go from there. It's an easy way to solve that situation. I'll let Dylan get into that next one. Not perfect, awesome.
Wicked. Cool, cool. Yeah, as Brad was saying, just to elaborate on that, it really is just like going back to that whole saying of let the market come to you, don't go to it. The market will get to its good high probability areas when it gets there. And if we're awake for it, just need to be keeping an eye on it. Our strategy and our entry model is so high probability. So yeah, we can sort of work around the session timing side of things when price is in those high probability areas. But basically with AU, so at the moment, obviously hourly range, prices come right down, respecting the low of that hourly range. Pushed up, had a big 15-minute break. It's come right back down to the downside and has now started to do some breaks of structure, working its way back up. So really right now, just looking for price to come and target all the liquidity that's up here at these highs and make a new structural leg. So what we had today and what we've got, coming into the session. So as price started to obviously work its way back up and doing these breaks here, this is where we're looking for the buy after the inducement of this, sorry, the sell after the inducement of that 15-minute high. So price came up, induced, was really, really clean. Had a 1-minute break here, came right back up, induced the 1-minute break, gave us our minor inducement after the medium inducement. Had this little internal break here, but just melted. Didn't quite give us the entry, but in terms of the setup, the confirmations, it was A+. Really, really clean trade. Unfortunately, that didn't tag us in, but it's just the way of AU a little bit sometimes. But yeah, it's that whole thing of high probability area. Right now, objective is price is we've made a new higher high. It's going to make a higher low before making a new higher high. So just looking for that retracement back down. But basically what we've got coming into the session today. So all of these points, like this point was, this point, this point, this point. Now the price is looking to make a new main leg and come and take out this high after doing that complete retracement. All of these points through here are all liquidity points as price does need its fuel to obviously create that new move. So selling from areas like this and in here is really, really high risk as price's chance and probability of bursting through those points, giving a little bit of a reaction and pushing through is really high. So right now, what I'd rather is wait for price to induce these points and then look for a sell back down afterwards. I'll keep an eye on it and see what it does here as this point is really clean, inducing the structure into the mitigation. Didn't quite come down and mitigate this point here. So there is a chance that it could still come up, use all of this as an inducement, mitigate here, push back down, induce this, bring in more sellers from here, and then work to buy it, work its way back up. But just going to depend on obviously what price wants to do. So keep an eye on it. But ideally, I'd rather see it induce and sell back down. Really just looking to follow with that momentum on the way to the upside. In terms of buys as well, if we don't get that sell, if we don't get a sell out of here or up here, I'm really looking for price to come either way back down here, or I'll see how it forms on the way back down. There's nothing really inside of here that I'd like to buy from. So ideally get an inducement of Asia lows into this mitigation and then buy from there. With EU probably looks the worst. It's had obviously this break here. Had that break there, then sort of just like trickled its way up, didn't really form any structure or anything like that. It's mitigated an hourly point here, had a really, really weak internal break. This internal break's just formed by sort of like one candle that paused and then one bearish candle. It's just not really structure. Like if we're using that as structure, we have to use this as structure, this as structure. It's just, yeah, it's not really anything significant enough to work with. So EU, I don't really have anything that I'm looking for today. It can come right the way back down if it wants to, either to this point or this point here. Chances of that happening are pretty slim given the way that it's moving. We might find that it does just trickle its way back up, but really I'm not going to be looking for anything on EU until we start to form a bit of actual structure. Maybe we get like an inducement, buy it up, targeting obviously all this, and then we can go from there. Pretty straightforward. So because there's no really good decisional points, they're all just kind of liquidity. Yeah, so exactly. And not even so much that, just understanding simply right now that price's objective is low, high, there's your break. Right now, price needs to come back down, mitigate whatever it's got in its extreme where it's decisional points. This range, we didn't really have a decisional, we just had an extreme area. Now that it's done its retracement and it's given us breaks to the upside, it's showing us that now its intention is to follow with this bullish range. So it mitigating, it doesn't have any need to mitigate these points and sell back down as it's already completed its objective of going bearish. So all it's going to do now is build liquidity to keep fueling that move up. To build liquidity, it's going to mitigate points, give a bit of reaction and push through. So yeah, just want to be careful of getting caught in those traps as they'll probably look really good. On AU, I get stuff. Nice, Kathleen. Yeah, sweet. If no one had any other questions, we will wrap it up there.
Beautiful.
Kathleen, the way you word things. Easy. All right, guys. Let's yeah, we'll see what we get today. Looking probably more than likely to be a late London or even New York, but yeah, we'll go live as soon as something's setting up and go from there.
Wait,
Easy. All right. Speak to you all soon.
some cheers.
Catch us.